Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. मेरा नाम रियाज चुनारा है. I'm the managing director of National Institute of Banking and Finance, subsidiary of State Bank of Pakistan. We are actually trying to take NABAF to a different level now, and with the introduction of specialized training institute. So we are working on various areas so that we develop our skills in terms of content development, in structural design, in areas of assessments where we can specialize. We are already conducting a lot of pre-induction programs, soft skills training, and various aided training, which we want to enhance it to a different level. And we want to mainly focus towards the banking and finance industry and work specialized courses in those things.
जो फैसिलिटीज़ हम प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं, इसमें हमारे पास ट्रेनिंग हॉल्स हैं, हमारे पास वर्चुअल कॉन्फ्रेंसेस हम लोग ऑफर कर रहे होते हैं. 120 रूम्स की हॉस्टल फैसिलिटी मौजूद है जो आप ट्रेनिंग के लिए आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. हमारे पास वेल इक्विप्ड IT लैब्स मौजूद हैं, 2 लाहौर इस्लामाबाद में, 1 लाहौर में, 1 कराची के अंदर है, जहाँ पर जो है IT रिलेटेड बहुत सारे ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स हम अरेंज कर रहे होते हैं. ये ट्रेनिंग सोल्यूशंस प्रोवाइड करने के लिए एक अहम कंपोनेंट के तौर पर काम कर रहे होते हैं.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you can see me and hear me.
Yes, Sada, it's okay.
Okay. We already have some 7 attendees. Should we wait for a few minutes before we start the webinar, or should I go ahead?
I think we should follow the timelines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, you please speak. Yeah, sir.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum everyone, and a very good morning to all of you. On behalf of National Institute of Banking and Finance, I, Sayyida Sadaf Bakr, welcome you all to the webinar on governance issues in Islamic banking, which is being organized by NABAF in collaboration with AAOIFI. NABAF is training subsidiary of State Bank of Pakistan. In addition to capacity building initiatives in central and commercial banking areas, NABAF is also playing its part in developing human prowess of not only our own country, but the region in area of Islamic banking by conducting various training courses. NABAF is the pioneer institute in Pakistan offering 3-week certificate course in Islamic banking and a postgraduate diploma course in collaboration with the IM Sciences Institute. We are also offering a crash course in AAOIFI Sharia standards and are soon going to launch a certificate course in Sharia audit as well. NABAF is also a representative of Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance and INSEEF in Pakistan. We are also launching a PhD postgraduate diploma course in Islamic banking in collaboration with Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance. And we are also conducting regular exams of INSEEF in Pakistan. As I mentioned earlier, today's webinar is a joint collaboration with AAOIFI. AAOIFI is the leading international organization primarily responsible for development and issuance of standards for the global Islamic finance industry. It has issued a total of 100 standards in the areas of Sharia accounting, auditing, ethics, and governance for international Islamic finance. These standards are currently being followed by all the leading Islamic financial institutions across the world, including Pakistan. We are glad to have with us today Ms. Zahra Jassim, the Executive Manager, AAOIFI. She's a qualified professional in Islamic finance with over 14 years experience in the sector. She has led landmark initiatives during her association with global organizations, including EY, Thomson Reuters, and AAOIFI. Presently, she is managing the overall process of issuing governance, ethics, and auditing standards as the senior management team of AAOIFI. Now we'll start the presentation with Zahra, but I'll request everyone to post questions and queries that they have in the chat that we'll take at the end of the session. And now, without further ado, I'll request Ms. Zahra to please share insights with us on very important subject of Sharia non-compliance risk and the governance issues in Islamic banking. Over to you, Ms. Zahra.
Thank you, dear Sadaf. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. I would like to start by thanking Nibaf for the kind introduction, for the kind invitation, and thanking you all for allocating 90 minutes of your time for this webinar. Let me start by sharing my presentation. Bismillah. Now you should see the presentation. Right, Sister Sadaf? Everyone can see the presentation?
It's perfect.
Yes.
Tamam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like to start by introducing you or sharing with you the table of content or the structure of this presentation. I have provided 7 sections in this presentation. The first 4 are introductory sections. So they will talk about, or I will talk about, the Sharia non-compliance risk, how to manage it, the differences between conventional and Islamic governance. Section 5 is the most important section in this presentation, which will talk about AAOIFI comprehensive framework and its key organs. So basically, we will identify certain issues in the Islamic finance industry governance, and we will see how they are addressed by AAOIFI. The last 2 sections, I call them supplementary sections. We will talk about the role of ethics in managing the Sharia non-compliance risk, referring to AAOIFI Code of Ethics that was issued in 2019. The last section will be an overview of the joint project between AAOIFI and IFSB. In 2008, we have signed a memorandum of understanding, 2018, sorry, we signed a memorandum of understanding with AAOIFI, with IFSB to develop a revised governance standard, and we're, alhamdulillah, reaching the final stages. So I will take you through this as well. Now, when it comes to time allocation, let me give you a tentative schedule of the time allocation. The first 4 sections and the last 2 will not take, inshallah, more than 15 minutes. And then I have 45 minutes for the overview of the comprehensive governance framework. 15 minutes will be for the first 3 standards, and the remaining will be for the standards that are newly issued by AAOIFI Governance and Ethics Board. So without further ado, let me please start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, let's talk about understanding Sharia and compliance risk. What are the different types of risks when it comes to conventional and Islamic as well? We're talking about general risks like liquidity, market risk, credit risk, reputational and operational risk. All of these risks apply to conventional. What is liquidity risk? How quickly you can convert an asset to cash. What is market risk? It's market risk. It's the systematic risk, the collapse of the market. 2008 crisis is an example. Credit risk is the risk of default. Reputation risk is the risk that the Islamic financial institutions or conventional financial institution lose their reputation due to certain circumstances. Operational risk related to processes and people. These are general risks that are applicable to both conventional and Islamic. Equity risk or equity investment risk is the risk that you lose the whole investment in a mudaraba mudaraba or musharaka transaction. Rate of return risk is the risk that there are fluctuations when it comes to the return on certain assets, because it's based on risk sharing, basically. What is displaced commercial risk? It's the risk that a customer, a depositor, will place its funds or their funds in another institution. Why? Because of the low returns. What's the core of this presentation? Sharia non-compliance risk. How do we define Sharia non-compliance risk? According to AAOIFI, it's the failure to comply with Sharia rules and principles. Let's explain it a little bit. It means that there are different, let's say, failures in the terms, conditions, and the related and other related aspects in the contracts. So we're talking about two types of contracts here: batil and fasid. Batil is contrary to Sharia. You will have, if there is riba in the transaction, khalas, you'll have to donate to charity the specific amount. What is a fasid contract? Fasid means that there are certain contradictions that you might be able to resolve if you remove certain aspects of the contract. Let me take you to the next slide, which is about the scope of Sharia non-compliance risk. We have primary risk. What is a primary risk? This is the risk that is related to the financial transactions or the financial arrangements, to the contracts and transactions. That's why when we define the external Sharia audit engagement or the process, we say that it is an independent engagement to ensure that the transactions, the financial arrangements, plus the contracts are in line with Sharia. This is the primary Sharia non-compliance risk. What about secondary risk? We're talking about reputation and ethics. And as I mentioned in the introduction, inshallah, I will take you through the ethics code of ethics issued by AAOIFI briefly in the last few sections. Now, what are the major implications of Sharia non-compliance risk? Let's talk about a recent case that happened last week, Wahed Invest. What happened is that there were issues related to breaching the fiduciary responsibility. There were issues about providing misleading information or misleading statements. And most importantly, what is relevant to us here is the Sharia non-compliance risk. So what are the implications of what happened? First, operational. We're talking about reputation. The reputation has been affected, not only for Wahed Invest, but also for the industry. Of course, regulatory non-compliance. What happened is that the Security Exchange Commission has declared some breaches when it comes to the operations of Wahed. Financial, they had to pay money, $300,000. So these are the major implications of risk. What are the major considerations when it comes to risk? We need to take care about the fiduciary responsibility. In a mudaraba transaction, the bank received the money from the customers or depositors, and they have a responsibility to manage this money without any negligence. Ethics and values, it's an important element and a major consideration when it comes to Sharia non-compliance risk. And again, Wahed case showed breach in ethics by hiding and misleading and providing misleading information. When it comes to Sharia non-compliance risk, we can measure it with Sharia non-compliance income. But when we defined it according to AAOIFI, we said it's failure to comply with Sharia principles and rules. So what are Sharia principles and rules? This is the hierarchy that is defined in the majority of AAOIFI standards, AAOIFI governance standards. We're talking about, let's say, how do we define Sharia principles and rules? We said Sharia non-compliance risk. It means that you fail to comply with Sharia principles and rules. What are these principles and rules? They are provided in line with this hierarchy. First, the Sharia standard issued by AAOIFI, then the regulations issued by the regulator, Number 3 is the rulings of the Central Sharia Board. 4 is the financial accounting standards. And 5 is the approvals of the Sharia Supervisory Board. Now, when it comes to this hierarchy, as I said, there were a lot of discussions in that try to have this hierarchy in the best possible way. And some of the comments that we received and some of the discussions were related about point 1 and 2, why the regulations are not first, why the Sharia standards come before the regulations. And this is, of course, because of the main mandate of AAOIFI, which is to provide harmonization and standardization in the industry, and the Sharia standards are the reference. I believe this ends the first section, which is about understanding Sharia and compliance risk. Now that you have a certain understanding, inshallah, a reasonable and a good understanding of Sharia and compliance risk, let's talk about how to manage it. This is a simplified process flow about Sharia and compliance risk management. Let's take a quick example of, let's say, selling an asset before owning it. This is a risk in a transaction in Islamic finance. In a murabaha, you cannot sell what you cannot own. So you identify the risk, you assess its impact. Of course, if you don't follow the right sequence of transaction, what happened is that you'll have to donate money to to charities. So assess the cost and benefits, right? So hire someone, avoid or mitigate this risk by hiring someone, educating them, training them, have proper IT systems, and then of course you can report such risk. Next is also we talk about managing risk from an institutional perspective and from a transactional or transaction level. When it comes to institution, Sharia governance is very important. We talk about, or there are preventive measures and detective measures. More details about the measures or the organs will be discussed in section number 5, which is about the different organs of AAOIFI Sharia governance framework. Just let me just give you an example. Preventive is the Sharia compliance function, and detective are the external and internal Sharia audit. So transaction level, it means when we talk about the product, we talk about murabaha, when we talk about the contract, how do you manage that? You manage it by putting certain controls in the process. Ethics and values are very important. And as I said, section 6 will talk about the code of ethics of AAOIFI, just a brief overview of it. Now to the most important, let's say, discussion point in this presentation, which is about how you specifically manage Sharia non-compliance risk through different organs of governance. You have at the core the Sharia Supervisory Board, and in Sharia standard or governance standard number 1 and 5, I will talk about its appointment, about the composition, about the report, and the independence. What else? You have Sharia compliance function. Sharia compliance function is a type of a preventive control, and I will talk about this when I reach the 5th section. More specifically, we're talking about GS or Governance Standard 9, which was issued by the new formed Governance and Ethics Board. Internal Sharia Audit is GS 11, and again, I will talk about it. It's relatively a long standard compared to the others, but inshallah, we will get time to talk about the fit and proper criteria of the head of internal Sharia Audit. We will talk about the certain function, the process, and the reporting line. Next is external Sharia Audit, which is again a detective control, and I didn't have it as part of the 6 standards that I will discuss because of time limitations, but inshallah in future presentations. Sharia compliance inspection by the supervisor is also an important measure to manage Sharia non-compliance risk. How do you use capacity building in managing the risk? Of course, as we said, the example of selling an asset before owning it, you'll have to train the people, providing them with proper orientations, and you can use IT systems as well. Most importantly, allocate adequate financial resources to managing the Sharia compliance risk, because if you fail to comply with Sharia, then you'll end up losing money. The role of supervisors in the management of Sharia and compliance risk. What can the supervisor do? Of course, they can establish CSP, they can coordinate with the SSPs, they can perform, as I said earlier, their inspections and different types of, let's say, measures. I believe this ends the second section, which is about managing Sharia and compliance risk. Now we're following a certain flow of information. You know what is risk, you know how to manage it. Let's talk about the role of governance in managing this risk. And it's very important to differentiate between governance, corporate governance in conventional bank, and Sharia governance in Islamic bank. So let's define what is corporate governance. There are different definitions. The easiest one is how companies are directed and controlled. Why it is important to have proper corporate governance? Because it will provide protection to the stakeholders. It will have the company or enable the company to realize its objective by optimization the use of resources, and will help the organization to competitively operate in the market. Let's see, or let's talk about the key pillars of corporate governance. Accountability, what does it mean? The management are accountable for their actions. What is responsibility? The second pillar, responsibility, means that the management or those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the operations of the institution to make sure that there are no breaches in governance. Transparency is it's about providing timely and transparent and keeping these stakeholders informed. Fairness, equal treatment. Key benefits, again, the importance, the key benefits, the impact of corporate governance, all of these areas are related. On an individual level, as we said, achieving the corporate objectives, you can attract more borrowers, you can protect the sponsorship of shareholders, and you can strengthen the banking regulation. What about the society? Of course, there is an impact on the society, and you can, by providing good corporate governance, making sure that social rewards are maximized. The impact, again, this is sort of a repetition. There is an impact on the economy, on the society, and on the corporation. Let's differentiate now between corporate governance and Sharia governance. The same pillars, the key pillars apply, but there is an additional layer. Why do we need Sharia governance? Because it assists in managing the risk. So what is it? You have the main principles of general corporate governance. You have an additional fiduciary responsibility for the investments account holders. You have the Sharia compliance according to the hierarchy that we have defined. And here you go, you have the Sharia governance framework. This is again some repetition. Why it is important? Because it will provide ensure Sharia compliance, it will reduce risk, and will enable faster growth, and most importantly, safeguard the reputation of the industry. This ends the third section. It took, I think, 20 minutes, so we'll have to go a little bit faster in the other sections. This is the fifth and the most important section. Let me take you through the standards of AAOIFI. We're talking about more than 23 relevant standards. I cannot explain all of them. Usually our public hearings, we take 2 to 3 hours per standard. But due to time constraint, I had to pick and choose. What did I choose? I chose 6 standards. The first 3 are issued before the constitution of the newly formed governance and ethics board, and the other 3 were post the formation of the board. What I will talk about Sharia supervisory, and what is the objective now? The objective is to talk about the appointment, composition, and report of Sharia supervisory board, about the Sharia review that is conducted, how it is done, and independence of SSP. These are short standards. So again, my goal is to finish them in 10 to 12 minutes, inshallah. Central Sharia Board is the first standard that was issued by the newly formed, or the board that was formed in 2016. Now we're serving the second term. Sharia compliance function is again very important as a preventive control, and internal Sharia audit as a detective control. So my objective, or the scope of elements, this is something that I have explained before. Sharia Supervisory Board will give us the fatwa. Sharia compliance function is preventive, internal and external are detective controls. And in some countries, there is a Sharia non-compliance risk management function. And the rating, Sharia compliance and fiduciary rating, it's new when we issued GS10, which is Sharia compliance and fiduciary rating for institutions. We were a little bit worried about the market acceptance for introducing this, let's say, a new measure, but inshallah, we're hoping that it will gain momentum in the future. And just a quick note that we are working on the second phase of this project, Sharia compliance and fiduciary rating for instruments, for the financial instruments. Who's responsible for managing Sharia non-compliance risk? The management and each individual, but how to make sure that this responsibility is fulfilled, the main responsibility remains with those charged with governance. This is the learning objective of the 6 standards that I'll go through. Let's start with Sharia Supervisory Board. What is the introduction? Why or what will be covered in this standard? We will define Sharia Supervisory Board. We'll talk about the appointment, who appoint them, who dismiss them, what is the composition, is it just scholars, and then briefly about the report of the Sharia Supervisory Board. Let's define Sharia Supervisory Board. It's an independent body of what? Of jurists, scholars, specialized in fiqh al-mu'amalat. What is their role? Their role is to direct, review, and supervise the activities of the bank. And why do they do that? What do they want to ensure? They want to ensure compliance with Sharia rules and principles as we defined it. The board may include experts, and of course the rulings are binding on the AAOIFI. Who appoint? The SSB, the shareholders in their annual general meeting. Who dismiss them? It's about a recommendation by the board of directors and subject to the approval of the shareholders. As we said, expert member may be included, and according to AAOIFI, at least 3 members should be appointed. The content of the report of the SSB, this is general, this is applicable to the internal Sharia audit report or the Sharia compliance function report, with, of course, differences. You'll have a title and addressee in all of them, introductory paragraph, the scope, the opinion, but of course the detailed information might be different. The report of the SSB should be published where? In the annual report. But what about the fatwas and ruling? It is recommended to make them available. This is the report structure, introductory paragraph, scope paragraph. I forgot to mention that I'll provide you with this presentation, so you can read this part and the opinion paragraph as well. Case study is also provided. Again, this is for your reference. I need to make sure that I don't exceed my limit when it comes to time, so I won't go through the case study. Concept checker are very important. They will help you to understand or to check your understanding of the standard. Let's take one example. Which of the following statement is correct? The SSB must comprise of at least 3 members. This is correct, as we mentioned. It may have less than 3 members. This is wrong. And the number of the SSB members will depend upon its size. No, it's not proportional to the size. We said at least 3 members will be or must be hired. About the dismissal, who will dismiss the Sharia Supervisory Board members, and which of the following statements regarding the SSB fatwa is correct? It's about is it issued? It is part of. It is recommended to be issued, or it's part of the annual report. This is about the structure of the report, and then you can as well check your understanding. I believe this is the last concept checker about the opinion paragraph in the report. Sharia review. What does this standard talk about? It's standard number 2. It provides guidance to the SSB to perform their Sharia review. What does it include? It includes 3 stages: the planning, the execution, and the reporting, and we will talk about them in the next slide. But let's first define what is a Sharia review. It's an examination of the extent of IFI compliance with Sharia principles and rules. Who's responsible? This is important. Who is responsible for ensuring that there is Sharia compliance in the IFI? This responsibility lies with the management. In the SSB report, any restrictions that are imposed should be disclosed. This is the process: planning, execution, documentation, and report. In the planning, the SSB should have a proper understanding of the operations. They should have a list of all the fatwas. They should understand the activities. They should have sample selection criteria. When they execute, they need to have understanding of the management awareness and commitment and control procedures. They'll have to review the contract, check if the transactions are in line with Sharia, review other informations like circulars or minutes and reports, and they will consult maybe with advisors such as the external auditors. Of course, they have to document their conclusions and their opinion, and the report will be read at the annual general meeting. They should take into consideration quality control measures. Again, this ends the Sharia review standard, which is standard number 2, and there are concept checkers. The first one is about the responsibility. As we said, it lies with whom? It lies with the management. And when we talk about Sharia compliance function, this is very important, that the responsibility to comply with Sharia is the responsibility of the management of the IFI. 3, independence of the SSB. Let's talk about the how to monitor the independence. What is the meaning of independence? What is the meaning of objectivity? How to resolve issues when it comes to independence. Defining independence is in the first slide. What is independence? It's an attitude of mind which does not allow the viewpoints and conclusions of its possessor to become reliant or subordinate to the influences and pressures of conflicting interest. Why it is important to have independence? It will enhance the public confidence and will help the IFI to achieve its objectives. What about objectivity? Independence, استقلالية, objectivity, موضوعية. Both of them are different. Objectivity is about having an independent mental attitude. Now here I have to refer to the Sharia decision-making standard, which is in progress. Alhamdulillah, we received the approval from the Sharia committee to issue it, and it will be issued inshallah shortly. It will guide the industry about the certain tendencies when it comes to making Sharia decisions or issuing fatwas, and it will be read in conjunction with standard Sharia standard 29, which is about stipulation of fatwa. Now, let's talk about certain points or notes about independence. First, the SSB members need to avoid potential and actual situations, and the appendix of this standard number 5 independence talks about cases or examples of independence issue. According to AAOIFI, the SSB member should not be an employee of the same bank. Also, they should not be involved in any manner in managerial decisions. Next is, I believe, is a certain consideration when it comes to the independence. Continuous assessment, what does that mean? There should be continuous assessment of the relationship with the IFI and making sure that there are no conflict of interest. How do you base this, or what do you base this independence on? The IFI Code of Ethics that was issued in 2019. What about the resolution of issues? If there is an issue of independence, what would you do? Document the issue, review the issue. If it still exists, that certain member must resign and the General Assembly should be notified. all of the above, all of the three, let's say, steps should be in accordance with or considering the local laws and regulation. The responsibility of implementing this standard lies with the management, as we said. The responsibility of Sharia compliance rests with the management. I believe next is the example. This is part of the appendix. What are the examples of independence impairment or issues? We're talking about financial involvement, personal and family relationship fees or contingency fees, performance-related bonuses, actual or threatened litigation, acceptance of undue hospitality, and long association with the SSB. According to AAOIFI, at least one member should be rotated every 5 years. This concludes, this is a case study about independence, and we have the concept checkers. I believe that I need to manage time in a better way. You have the concept checker, again, for your reference. This will be sent to all of you, and inshallah, you'll be able to assess your understanding of the independence standard. Now, the first three are done. The first three standards are done. These are shortest standard that was issued before the formation of the Egypt Accounting and, AAOIFI Governance and Ethics Board. What remains, what is next, is the three standards that I will talk about, which are Central Sharia Board, Central Sharia Board, Sharia Compliance Function, GS9, and third is the Internal Sharia Audit. These are relatively longer standards. So I'll try to keep an eye on the time and manage, inshallah, within 25 minutes before we conclude by mentioning the last two sections about ethics and RSGF, the Revised Sharia Governance Framework. This is very important. Our standard encourages, but does not mandate the formation of CSB. What you will learn about in this standard, we will have introduction, you'll know about the appointment, you'll know about the terms of reference, the composition, the functions. This is very important. We're talking about three functions of the Central Sharia Board, which are advisory, regulation, and limited supervision. You will know about the responsibility of the appointing authority and independence. I'm sure that you have noticed that the flow of information is similar to more or less to the to GS1 and 5, the Sharia Supervisory Board appointment and the independence. Because when we established or when we started drafting this standard, we kept in mind that we want to have the similar process. Let's define CSB. What is CSB? A broad level board comprised of what? Jurist and expert. What is their objective? They have to provide guidance on Sharia matters. Why they are providing guidance? To provide uniformity and harmony in the industry. When you appoint, when the appointing authority, mostly the regulator, appoint the CSB, they must consider the composition, diversity in the composition, their independence. We said about independence issues or impairment issues, and of course the fit and proper criteria prescribed by GS8. Let me give you just a heads up about the Revised Sharia Governance Framework. The fit and proper criteria are improved in the Revised Sharia Governance Framework, RSGF, which is the combined project between AAOIFI and IFSB. So whatever I explained to you today, it will be improved, and I encourage you to attend the public hearings of the RSGF, which will be issued, inshallah, next month. Now, about the second appointment, what are you going to take into consideration? The rotation requirement. We just mentioned that the rotation requirement of SSB, that it is preferred that at least every 5 years someone is rotated. You'll also take into consideration self-evaluation requirements. Again, just a heads up, in the Revised Sharia Governance Framework, we have a specific sample for self-evaluation for the Sharia board members to ensure better governance. Let's talk about the nomination committee. The nomination committee, what are we saying? We're saying that a committee can be formed to nominate suitable candidate. Why this was not included in the original exposure depth. But then after the public hearing, after hearing from the stakeholders, they suggested to ensure transparency and as a better governance practice, there should be a nomination committee. So we added that. Remuneration, how are they going to be paid? It's different styles or different approaches. It can be on retainer basis, time basis, attendance basis, or a combination. What is the recommended tenure? 3 to 5 years. The removal and termination of the SSP or the CSP member. 2 cases, professional misconduct or not attending the meetings. Again, heads up. Professional misconduct. In the public hearing, we were asked why you did not define professional misconduct. We said that it's a legal term, every regulator can define it. And we try to have our standards as much as we can, principle-based, not rule-based. The removal and termination cases are elaborated and more detailed in the revised Sharia governance framework. So again, when you read it, inshallah, next month, and when you attend the public hearings, bear in mind the differences. The number, how many Central Sharia Board members should be included. If it's a single industry segment, if it caters, if this specific CSP caters for one industry, we recommend 5 members. And 7 members if it caters for more. Important consideration. The majority of members should be Sharia scholars. Chairman and vice chairman shall be selected from among the Sharia scholars. Experts may be included, and fit and proper criteria is prescribed for both of them. We will look at them, inshallah, in this standard, in next few slides. Taking into consideration diversity. What does it mean? You take scholars from within the country or from global or from other countries, you take into consideration different schools of thought and different fields for the experts. You have an economist, a lawyer, an accountant, and so on. This is important. What are the functions of the CSP? When we talk about the different organs, we talk about 3 more, the most, in my opinion, the most important 3 information to provide is 1, the functions, their role, their responsibility, what do they do, the reporting lines, and the fit and proper criteria. So the functions of the SSP, as I said before, are 3. Advisory and fatwa, regulation, oversight, and limited supervision. Let's talk about the advisory and fatwa. What is the main responsibility? As we said, we mentioned that before. The main responsibility of the SSP is to issue fatwa, approve the products, approve the sukuk. They provide advisory services on specific issues and provide their expertise. 3rd point is very important. What are we saying? We're saying that the role is passive, reactive. Whatever the appointing authority allocate to them. But they have their role must be changed to reactive when? If there are Sharia non-compliance issues ignored by the regulator, and if there is a negative market perception, and then there is compromising the stakeholders' interest. The regulations, we said that when it comes to regulation, the SSB role is of an advisory nature. So they will help the regulator in adopting the Sharia standard. They provide consultation to the regulator. They will review and approve the directives, and they will approve the code of ethics and will coordinate with other central Sharia boards to establish uniform best practices. Oversight and limited supervision. Limited. What can they do? They settle differences and disagreement between the SSP and the regulator. They can supervise and guide the inspection. They can have periodic meetings with the SSPs. These are important considerations. What are they? The decisions will be by majority of board. They should be in line with Maqasid al-Sharia, and those decisions should be compiled and published in case approved by the regulator. There are 3 options when it comes to appointing the secretariat. It can be from amongst the member, can be officer from the appointing authority, or an individual specifically hired to play the role of secretariat. Self-evaluation and reporting, we talked about evaluation. And as I told you, we will have a specific and detailed evaluation, sample or form. The appointing authority, okay, we know what the CSB functions, what are they going to do? As an appointing authority, you should provide full independence to the CSB. You'll have continuous professional development program, and you will have to provide the required resources. The fit and proper criteria, I believe this is the last slide. Yes. For Sharia scholars and for expert members, they are similar. We're talking about, when we talk about Sharia scholars, good command of Arabic and common business language is a condition or is a criteria. We're talking about the experience, the suitable practical experience, preferably 10, but not less than 5. Why did we say 5? Because there are new, this is catering to the new market or considering the new market. Again, when I send you the presentation, please read it. And when you attend, inshallah, or read the exposure draft of the revised project, you will notice some improvements. Am I running out of time? Yes, I have 2 more standards, Sharia compliance function and the internal Sharia audit. So what I'll do, I'll skip the concept checkers. You'll have the remuneration, you'll know about the composition, you'll know about the tenor, about the termination, and the role, the functions of the CSB. And this ends the 4th standard. Now I have approximately 15 minutes to conclude everything, inshallah. Let's try our best. Sharia compliance function, this is GS9. Why do we need this standard? What it will provide? It will provide rules and principles when it comes to the role of Sharia compliance. So it will talk about the function and the department. Now, an important thing that I want to share with you is about the name of the standard. There were some discussions about why not calling it Sharia compliant department, and the answer for this is very simple, which is the function include the department and other processes and people. So we wanted to have a definition or a name or a title that encompasses all of these considerations. What are we going to talk about? Again, similar structure in all of AAOIFI standards: role and responsibilities, key functions, reporting rights, secretariat, integration with human resource, which is about the fit and proper criteria, and their independence. The organizational independence of CSD is very important. And of course, we will talk about the report. The responsibility. Who is responsible for Sharia compliance? We said that before. It's the management and those charged with governance. Sharia compliance function is a type of what? A preventive control ex ante, as opposed to detective ex post, which are the internal and external Sharia audit. Is there a role for the SSB to play in Sharia compliance function? Of course, they shall keep an oversight of the overall Sharia compliance. Let's talk about the key pillars. We're talking about control environment, setting the tone at top, assessing the risk. As we said, it's important what we are talking about now. Why did I have an introduction about risk assessment or understanding Sharia and compliance? It's because all of these measures are put why? Because we want to avoid this risk and make sure that the reputation and soundness of the industry is their control activities. How are you going to control any risks that you identify? Communication and information, always keeping the concerned person, you keep them informed and you monitor your progress. This next slide is about explanation, a little bit of explanation about what I have just said. Let's go to the next slide, hiring. Of course, if you hire someone in the Sharia compliance department, they should have an understanding in Islamic finance. You should train your staff, the management. There should be regular orientation. This is important, and it was added after the public hearing process. There should be a policy of non-tolerance towards Sharia and compliance. There should be proper controls, and it should be reflected in performance appraisals and increment. Technology, you can use the IT system to have checks and flags that provide preventive control. If you sell an asset before owning it, the system should alert you. Let's talk about important consideration. The head of Sharia Compliance Department, of course, has to be senior and experienced, and the fit and proper criteria for the head of Sharia Compliance Department are mentioned as part of the appendix in the GS9, but we moved them to the body text of the RSGF. Who's responsible for hiring the head? The management, but it's subject to the concurrence of the SSB. This is again, this is a repetition what we have said. SD is part of the management. It's different than internal Sharia audit and external Sharia audit. External provide independent, the internal provide report to the audit committee. So the management report should be submitted to the management, and there has to be a dotted line reporting with the SSB. This is important. What are the functions? Okay. What are the functions of the SCD, Sharia Compliance Department? They will have to have Sharia-related input. They will support the SSB. They will review the documentations with the stakeholders. They will have compliance programs. They will have their input when it comes to communication to stakeholders related to matters relevant to Sharia. They will coordinate with internal auditors and external auditors, which can use their report as a reference. And they will assist in having proper training and development for the staff, right? They will also contribute as a researcher, and this is very important. The last two are very important. They will assist in managing and facilitating decisions from the SSB, and they are responsible for monitoring the enforcement of the internal audit report, because this is an important point. It will be again repeated in the internal Sharia audit standard, which is GS11. Let's talk briefly about key considerations. Now, why it is important to coordinate with the risk management department. The SCD, of course, they are managing Sharia and compliance risk, so they'll have to coordinate with the risk management department. They will have an ongoing assessment, ongoing process, and they should be independent from business operations. This is again an important point. They can, we are saying in the standard that they can perform the function of the SSB secretariat. The next point is again very important. There should be a dotted line reporting with the SSB, and they can help in the Sharia review, the planning, execution, and the documentation, as we have provided, as I explained in Sharia and governance standard number 2. Let's talk about the process of managing. How do you have the compliance tools and following up on these matters? Some considerations. The staff, they should have understanding of fiqh al-muamalat. The head will have, I'll talk about the fit and proper criteria for the head, and there should be continuous professional development program to keep them ahead. They know what's going on in the market, the new rules, the new standards, the new information, the new incidents. To conduct the routine compliance, they can consider what? The manuals, the tool kit, and the transaction walkthroughs. They should identify, there should be a follow-up process, an inventory of open issues, and they have to develop an action plan for resolutions of the issues of non-compliance. What is the content of the report? As I said, we're talking about the scope, responsibilities, key issues, key risks, follow-up issues. This is tentative, of course, or suggestive. This is something that we have talked about before. The senior management should coordinate with the SSB, and the report of the compliance department can be used or can be considered before finalizing the annual Sharia review report, which is issued by the SSB. Sharia and compliance risk rating can be introduced. Okay, let's see. 7 minutes. So I'll skip this part, the concept checker. Again, I need you please to look at it and assess your, excuse me, and assess your understanding of GS9. Last standard, internal Sharia audit. Can I finish it in around 7 minutes? Let's say, inshallah, in 10 minutes we can conclude. GS11, what did we say about internal Sharia audit? We said that it's a deductive control. Now, an important point is that this standard supersedes the internal Sharia review, which is GS3. Why did we revise it? It was established, I believe, or it was issued, the internal Sharia review standard, the GS3, it was issued like, I think, 20 years back. So it was in the initial state of the development. We had to improve it. There are new regulations and new updates. What is it as a scope? We want to talk about establishing and operating the internal Sharia audit function. So again, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the reporting line, the fit and proper criteria, the process of internal Sharia audit. Due to time constraint, I'll leave that for you to read. What are the changes? This is the content of the standard, basically, what I'll go through, the difference between the objective, the quality assurance requirement, the difference between internal Sharia audit and Sharia compliance function. This is very important to know, and who's responsible for this function. The reporting line will be to whom. The options, how are you going? There are three ways or three forms to operate or to establish a an internal Sharia audit function. We have the option of outsourcing, while we don't have that for the SCF or SCD. Again, you can read that. This is important. Internal Sharia audit and Sharia compliance function. Internal Sharia audit assesses the adequacy and the effectiveness of the controls. It's a detective measure. Sharia compliance function, no. It is ongoing assessment, a preventive control measure. You'll need to apply. We're saying that the internal auditor, Sharia auditor, should abide by the certain quality control. We are mentioning the name of the standard, our ethical requirement, AAOIFI Code of Ethics, and this is important. What did we say about Sharia compliance function? We said it's part of the management. What about ISA? It is independent of the management. The objective, what is the objective? We're talking about providing assurance in the form of opinion about the adherence of Sharia. Again, it's a governance organ. And what are the things that should be considered while performing this internal Sharia audit? We'll have to take into consideration the governance and the structure framework, internal controls, and establishing adequate risk assessment criteria. Again, why did I have the introduction about Sharia and compliance risk? Because it's interrelated. You need to have a smooth flow of information. Responsibility. You need to differentiate. Who's responsible for SCF? SCF is the responsibility of the management. While internal Sharia audit, we said it's independent from the management. So who's responsible? The audit committee, and involving the SSB. The possible options, a separate department is the default and preferred options. We're saying there are cases in which it can be a part of the unit of the existing internal audit function, or you can outsource it. The outsourcing option is not possible for the Sharia compliance department. The next slide explains these and talks about the different conditions, right? You can outsource in this case, you can establish it as a unit. In this case, it's about having proper fit and proper criteria and adequate capability. This is the summary. Reporting line, we have mentioned it already to the audit committee. Of course, the staffing, the head of internal Sharia audit, there should be proper criteria, fit and proper criteria to hire the head. And there should be continuous education. This is again about human resources. The charter and the manual, there should be, of course, for better procedures. The charter will include the high-level information. Manual is more detailed, and the content is mentioned here. Next is, what are you going to look at? The internal auditor will assess what? The governance structure, and will assess the risks. What about the reports? You'll have a plan. Sorry, what about the plans? You'll have to have periodic plans to be developed at least on annual basis, and they have to be updated, of course. And what about the auditing process or the annual report? What are you going to document? You will document the governance management tool, whatever you have identified in the scope, and you will assess the risks of Sharia non-compliance. Okay, let me see Q&A. There are 10 questions, so they can be answered, inshallah, in 20 minutes. Next is what? Next is the process, the principal procedure. Do you remember at the beginning I told you about where we explained the process of risk management? This is of course more detailed, and you'll assess the risk, you'll identify the risk, you'll plan your visits, you'll have samples, you will have a detailed procedures depending on the level of residual risk, and then you'll have your report. I think when it comes to audit, two concepts are important to explain, which are materiality and residual risk. What is materiality? It's the significance of the matter. You look at it quantitatively from a quality perspective, right? What about residual risk? It's the risk that remains after deducting the inherent risk. What does that mean? Let me give you a very basic general example. Now, to make sure that a person is not hurt, if God forbid he has a car accident, what is there? You have the seat belt, you have other precautions, but there is still a chance that this person will get hurt, right? So this is the residual risk. Next slide explains this basically. Materiality and why you're going to perform, the performance of the detailed procedure will depend on the residual risk. You can take the help and the use of IT systems, and the sampling size, of course, will be responsive to the risk of Sharia non-compliance. What are you going to document? Your documentation process will be in line with best practices, right? And when it comes to auditing, the professional judgment is very important. As we said, you can use the help of technology. Now, when it comes to the reporting document or requirement, the final report will be submitted to the SSB and audit committee. And as we said, it's preferred to have a rating mechanism, right? Who is responsible for the follow-up? As we said, it's the responsibility of the SCD. They are responsible to making sure that, okay, the internal auditor identified this risk, identified this issue. They should resolve it and make sure it doesn't happen. This is the content of the report. As we said, there are general, let's say, elements. Next, I believe, is the fit and proper criteria. This is the last slide for GS 11, and then I'll have maybe 5 minutes for the last two sections before I take your questions. Let me tell you something about the fit and proper criteria for the head. Now, this is an issue, right? I remember the first Islamic finance presentation that I conducted was in 2008. The last slide was about the issues in Islamic finance. Two issues are relevant to mention here. One is the lack of qualified personnel. Now, how long? 14 years back? It is still an issue, not resolved completely. And the second was the lack of standardization, which is, again, all of this, all what I have explained, all of the efforts, the mandate of AAOIFI is to improve the standardization. When it comes to the experience and the qualification of the head of Sharia, internal Sharia audit, there are certain requirements. He has to be approved by the SSB and regulator. Again, the professional Sharia audit firms, we said that outsourcing is an option in internal Sharia audit. Now, when you outsource it to a professional audit firm, it should be approved by the SSB, and you need to make sure that this audit firm has adequate resources, and it is, of course, independent. A heads up. RSGF, the Revised Sharia Governance Framework, it will be mentioned where it will be, again, the RSGF, the Revised Sharia Governance Framework, include these in the internal Sharia audit standard GS11. These are part of the appendix. In the revised Sharia governance framework, which again, I hope that you attend the public hearing next month, these are transferred to the body text, and there are improvements. So again, we revised the RSGF. The working group has 33 members from 21 RSAs or regulators. So there are improvements in the standards. Because I'm running out of time, inshallah, 2 more sections. This ends internal Sharia audit standard GS11, which was issued in 2019. These are the concept checkers for you. The difference between the 2 organs, Sharia compliance and Sharia audit. The reporting line is, as I said, something very important when it comes to Sharia compliance department, Sharia, internal Sharia audit, and also the external Sharia audit, which is an independent assurance engagement. The options, brothers and sisters, the three options that I have mentioned, you can have it as any of these 3. The preferred option is default, or the default is the separate department. However, you can outsource, and it can be a unit of the existing internal audit if and only if certain conditions are mentioned. This is again relevant to the same point. This is about residual risk. When are you going to perform detailed procedure? It will depend on the level of residual risk. Last 2 sections. I think I have maximum 5 minutes for both of them. Role of ethics in managing Sharia and compliance risk. This is a supplementary section. I'll talk about 2 things mainly. Objective of this code of ethics that was issued in 2019. And there were many interviews that were conducted with seniors in the Islamic financial industry, and a lot of effort has been given to this standard. So I'll talk to you about its objective, and I'll talk to you about its structure. And inshallah, in future sessions, we can have a separate presentation about the code of ethics, because it's like 70 pages document. Our standard, AAOIFI standard, is for individuals. Code of ethics for Islamic finance professionals, while IFSP has a code of ethics in the institutional level. Now, again, as I said, objective and content of the standard, the main structure. What is the main structure? But before I tell you about the objective, the first line, if in case you have read the code of ethics, the first line is the hadith, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. And you all know the hadith that if you lose money, you lose nothing. If you lose health, you're losing something. But what if you lose ethics? You lose everything. That's why it's important to have a proper code of ethics. This superseded the two previously issued codes of ethics, and it helped the professionals to achieve barakah. It's about aligning with maqasid al-Sharia, letter and spirit of Sharia. You will understand what it means to be ethical. It will encourage the professionals to pursue ethics voluntarily. D and E are relevant to what? To the risks that we talked about. It will reduce the operational risks, and it will enhance the confidence and the integrity of the industry as a whole. And as we all know, the Wahid case was a clear breach of ethics. The structure. This is the structure of the standard. It is all based on the Adl and Al-Ihsan equation. Adl al-Ihsan equation, what is it about? It's about having the right intention, the right niyyah, taqwa, having tawakkul. You do the right thing. How you do the right thing? You should have sidq and amana. You do it in the right manner. You should have quwwah. You should have the proper qualification, experience, and you engage with others positively. Tawasaw bil-haq, Surah Al-Asr, I believe. So this is the Adl and Ihsan equation. What is the structure? I believe this is the last slide in this section. You'll have a conceptual framework, and you have 92 violations of ethics. So discrimination, bribes, cheating, lying, misstatement. And I'm sure that there are more than 92 violations, but this is what we have classified in 14 categories. And also there are ideas, right? So you'll have virtues, you'll have sidq, you'll have amana, you'll have tawakkul, you will have encouraging sidq and amana and others ideas. Okay, last section, overview of the joint project between AAOIFI and IFSB. Hopefully in 2 minutes I can finish that. This slide you have seen before. These are our standards, right? 13 governance standards. These are the relevant IFSB standards. What happened? We decided that in 2018, khalas, we don't want any more overlapping. We should have a revised set of principles to guide the industry. So we combined some of our standards, some of IFE standards to get this revised Sharia governance framework. What is the important point? It provides improved controls, and it will supersede some of the existing standards. And again, you'll know which standards, inshallah, when you attend the public hearings. Let me give you just a quick overview about the process. When it was approved, the collaboration by the IFSB Technical Council and by the AAOIFI Edge Board in 2018, 4 years. Imagine, yani 4 years of hard work, inshallah, all of this will be appreciated by the industry. How many working group members? 33 from 21 RSAs. So you can have a perspective of the level of expertise that is provided. It is led by a co-chairman, and one co-chairman from our side and one from IFSB side. The meetings, 8 joint working group meetings. This is not 8 days of meetings. La, some of them had, one of the meetings was 5 days meeting. Same thing for EJIB, or our governance board. Technical committee of IFSB will meet also next month, inshallah, the beginning of the month before the issuance. The Sharia committee review. This is very important. The Sharia committee review that was formed consists of scholars, mashallah, with reputation and with technical expertise. And they finalized the approval in 5 meetings. 5 meetings, they had to finalize the approval. The objective, as I said, unified standards, avoiding overlap, helping to fulfill their fiduciary responsibility. We want better harmonization. We want transparency and public confidence, and complementing and superseding some of the standards issued by AAOIFI. What are the 14 principles? So it's 70 pages document approximately. This is how I like to divide. You have from 1 to 4, these are the general corporate governance, right? That are applicable to both, and with a specification about Islamic finance. 5 to 8 is what I explained to you today. Again, improved, detailed, there are changes according to recommendations, and 9 is external Sharia audit. Unfortunately, I didn't get time to explain this, but this is again an important organ. Islamic windows. This is a short section, but in the Sharia committee, I think 2 or 3 hours were dedicated for this section because of the transparency issues and other relevant issues. Islamic subsidiaries, other consideration. What are you going to consider? You're going to consider the investment account holders. You're going to consider rating. As I said, we have the rating project. It applies, of course, to other sectors, and there are disclosure and transparency requirement. Are there challenges? Of course, we had challenges, and in 4 years, we had to overcome a lot. We had to remove the overlaps. You have 2 bodies that have been issuing for the past, I don't know how many years, standards, and now you are going to combine them, join hands. Is it principle-based or rule-based? This is very important. Usually, our standards, IFE standards, are principle-based, but we have put in some rules in coordination with IFSB. A comprehensive framework, of course, it was difficult to accept, to develop such a comprehensive standard. As you can see, 14 principles, 17 pages, everything is covered. It's a good reference for the industry. Market acceptance, will the regulator adopt it? This is again a challenge. In case you don't have or you have not read the footprint analysis of AAOIFI, I can provide Brother Ahmed and the team with a copy so that you refer to it and you see the acceptance, the footprint of AAOIFI in the world. Implementation issues, practicality, right? This is again, we have regulators as part of the working group, and I believe I have to conclude. COVID is challenging, you know that. Alhamdulillah, done. An additional section, I will not explain that, this is for your reference, a comparative analysis of Sharia governance between AAOIFI, IFSB, and the State Bank of Pakistan, introduction about all of them, and then detailed, alhamdulillah, comparison between them. Now, I believe we have 17 questions and 15 minutes.
Sister, may I have a suggestion that
Yes.
Sadam has, just realigned the questions and put the more important questions in, priority basis. So she will show you the questions on the screen. Can you, Sadam, please show your
Yes,
questions?
I can. Thank you very much, Zahra, for this very insightful overview on understanding the concept of Sharia, non-compliance risk, and how to incorporate management of this risk in overall governance framework. We have these questions, and I have compiled them in order of their importance, or maybe as per my understanding. So I'll be sharing this screen with you.
Come on.
So the first question is, how can we manage transparency? If you can explain it.
Yes, in the reports, right? So we have disclosure requirements. We have certain things have to be disclosed. And we talk, for example, about the remuneration. It has to be disclosed. The remuneration of the Sharia Supervisory Board, the annual report of the SSB have to be published in the annual report, right? And it is recommended that fatwas also are published. And a heads up, there's a whole section about transparency and disclosure in RSGF. So again, inshallah, next month, if you all attend the public hearings.
Okay,
next,
so
we'll
ask our participants to join next month.
Yes, inshallah.
When we arrange this webinar with you. So the other question, which is very common, and that is posed by most of the people, that how are fiqh-related issues handled by AAOIFI and IFSB, and if the Sharia board has representation of scholars of different Islamic jurisprudence?
The answer is definitely yes, alhamdulillah. Let me tell you about the composition of our three standards. Three standard setting boards. The Sharia board, mashallah, 20 of the most experienced standard scholars headed by Sheikh Taqi Uthmani, and from different schools of thoughts, from different jurisdictions, from different expertise levels. Ajib also, AAOIFI Governance and Ethics Board, we have representations from Sharia, and the last term, the Deputy Chairman was Sheikh Hassan Ishaq. We have scholars from Dubai, we have scholars from USA. So let me tell you something. When we elect or start the process of formation of the boards, we have criteria. So representation of different schools of thought is there. Representation from different jurisprudences there, different qualifications, and we also have the Sharia expertise is important, but also to make sure that our process is, let's say, I would say comprehensive. We have also the involvement of experts. We have experts in legal, we have experts in economic, we have experts in accounting. So don't worry about our process. We have taken into consideration all of these, and alhamdulillah, we have representation, we have support. Just let me tell you something. At the beginning of this year, we have issued only the AAOIFI Governance and Ethics Board, only AAOIFI and Ethics Governance Board. This is very important, 250 letters for experts in the industry, including professionals. For every working group, we must have a Sharia representation by scholar, plus the additional layer, brothers and sisters, is the Sharia committee. When you read our standards, you will see that in the history, we say after the due process. The due process, the standard was issued on this date. What is the due process? The approval of the Sharia committee. An example, of course, the Sharia committee consists of 3 members of the Sharia board and 3 experts, other scholars in the industry. They're all scholars, by the way. It's not a board that has experts, they're all Sharia scholars. The RSGF, the Revised Sharia Governance Framework, we had 5 meetings, 2 to 3 hours with the scholars and the Sharia decision-making exposure that I told you that we will issue, inshallah, shortly. We had over a course of a year, many meetings with the Sharia scholars in order to make sure that they are aligned. Now we issue Sharia standard, we issue accounting standard, we issue governance standard. We must make sure that they are all aligned. I think I have answered this question in detail, but maybe we should go to another question.
Yes, somewhat related question is that is there any guidance from AAOIFI on appointing key management in Islamic banks, since the key positions are being held by non-Muslims in many Islamic banks across the world?
Okay. Key management positions include the head of inter-Sharia, the Sharia compliance head. And I don't want to stay ahead of what is already, let me tell you briefly. The fact that non-Muslims are holding positions in many Islamic banks have been discussed, not only in the working group, in the board, in the Sharia committee, and we have reached the conclusion. The conclusion, you will know it especially for specific roles, you will know it in the RSGF. I don't prefer to tell you what is it now, but we have taken care of this point. Your concern is addressed. And don't worry about it. We have all the experts that discussed it, inshallah, alhamdulillah, in detail. So stay tuned. Check the Revised Sharia Governance Framework.
Okay. The next question is that general perception, particularly in Pakistan, is that the people groomed in conventional banking are largely involved in risk management, regulatory and management functions of Islamic financial institutions. So if that is the case, what are the implications? And a question which is like opposite of that is, can a Sharia scholar join Sharia compliance function without having prior banking experience? So somewhat, yes, please answer.
So can Sharia scholar join Sharia compliance department without no, of course not. Why? Because we have fit and proper criteria. The experience part, okay, let me tell you something about the experience. We talked about, the thing is, there are junior scholars. Junior scholars will not be senior scholars until they are trained. But we have taken into consideration this point by specifying a specific number of years. There is a specific number of years ranging from 5 to 10 in the already issued standard, and there is a revised number of years in the Revised Sharia Governance Framework. So again, this, I would say, you should read the Revised Sharia Governance Framework and see how did we address that. Very important. But it's a good question, actually.
Okay.
What are the consequences?
What are the consequences of Sharia non-compliance in the governance and at transaction level?
You consider the transaction or the contract batil or fasid, right? If you sell a murabaha, this is the example that I used throughout the presentation. If you sell an asset before you own it, what will happen? You'll have to donate money to the charity. And there are other examples when it comes to salam. The specific Sharia rules of each contract, of each product, murabaha, mudaraba, musharaka, if you don't comply with them, you have Sharia non-compliance risk. Sharia non-compliance risk, what does it mean? How do you measure it? Sharia non-compliance income, which you have to disclose as well.
And then role of AAOIFI in standardizing the largely used Islamic products.
We have Sharia standards covering mudaraba, musharaka, credit, in standardizing largely used Islamic product. Yes, so we have, I would urge you to look at the Sharia standard, and these are available for free online. In case you don't have the link, I can share it with the NIBAF team, and you can look at it, because there are rules for mudaraba, musharaka, salam. I cannot explain all of them now, but you need to take a look at the standards that are issued.
Sadaf, please ask the last question.
The last question that has appeared in question and answer session. Hello. Yes, which
As a last
principle or
question.
standards cover resolution of issues highlighted by Sharia auditors, and especially when there is a difference of opinion on Sharia matter or Sharia compliance between Sharia scholars in audit function and SSP?
Can you show me the question? I didn't hear
Yes,
it.
in question and answer section, there's this last question.
Okay, let me go.
It in the sheet as well.
Which principles, okay, or standards cover resolution of issues highlighted by Sharia auditors, internal and external, and especially where there is a difference of opinion on Sharia matter or Sharia compliance between Sharia scholars in the audit function and the SSP? I would recommend you to visit or to inshallah attend the public hearing and read the standard of the revised Sharia governance framework. It has the proper details about that.
Okay. There's this question, how can we accept any residual risk, or how should we mitigate it? Is there any level of acceptance for it?
See, the standard, the internal Sharia audit standards specify or classify the residual risk to 3 types: low, medium, and high. The low means that you don't have to perform detailed procedure. Medium, you have to provide from low to medium or reasonable detailed procedures. But if the residual risk is high enough, then you'll have to perform the detailed procedures. Hope that answer your question. Can we?
Yes.
Sadaf,
we are running out of
please
time.
Ask the last question, question number 12, as the last question. Question number 12.
Okay. If there
this
are
is important
capacity
question, and then
infrastructure. Okay, so question number 12 is, if there are capacity infrastructure issues at the regulators end, then what instruments can be used to handle discussed risks?
Okay, that's difficult to answer. Let me write it down. If I can get your contact details, it's detailed and it's not very easy. It's a tricky question. So if Sadaf, you can share it with me, I'll make sure that the concerned person gets
definitely. Okay.
Inshallah.
And then we have, can we get assistance in Sharia compliance matters using IT-based software? Wasim sir, you wanted me to ask this question or the 15th?
No, that's it.
I think last one is already answered. IoT and
yes.
IFSD complementary.
So if you want to share these with me, and I can provide you also with all of their answers to the, you can share it with the attendees along.
That will be great.
Yeah,
that will be great. We'll share it with you, and we'll share the the answers that we received from Ms. Zahra with all of the participants. Also, we are going to share the presentation with all of the participants because we have been receiving this request. I will request Mr. Riaz Nazar Ali Chunara, who is the Managing Director of NABAF, to say a few words about this presentation, webinar, and express his views. Sir, over to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sister Zahra and Sister Sadaf and Ahmed Wasim Saab for such an insightful session. I think 1.5 hours has been, it has passed so fast, and there were so many things which you tried to cover. Sharia obviously is Sharia governance is one of the critical thing, and I think when you talk about risk management, obviously Sharia risks are quite different than the conventional risk, especially in terms of their products, the way it's structured. And it can easily, as you said, that if something goes wrong, it can result into a charity instead of an income. So that is something you have to make sure that you do it properly. You talked about Sharia non-compliance risk. To start with, the Sharia audits, I think that was very significant. The supervisory board, which actually governs the whole process. And obviously, you compared it with the conventional. So conventional and differentiating between conventional and Sharia. And I think one good thing is this, that AAOIFI and IFSB has now combined the governance structure. So at least the governance framework is now one. So we are now looking at one framework instead of looking at different standards. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much, the audience, and thank you very much all for attending. And thank you, Zahra, for such a very insightful session. Thank you.
Most welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the attendees. Inshallah, you learned something. And if you need any help or support, I know that there are students. Any comments, I would love to help and support. The organizers have already my contact details, so alhamdulillah.
Thank you very much, Zahra. And I would like to say thanks to all the participants who joined us. And we'll be sharing the presentation and your questions if you have any more with Ms. Zahra, and we'll be sharing the answers with you as well. We have our email addresses actually, and we'll be sharing all these things. Thank you very much. And the recording of this webinar will be available on our website. So all of you who were complaining it's going a bit fast, they can definitely go on the website and can listen to your views again. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, Arslan Sahab, please finish kar.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.